Holly Hughes, Joe Hildebrand, lovely to see you both. Joe's podcast, The Real Story, is available for the Nova Player.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Very kind of you.
So, I've got to ask you this question, all right? Last week, we're pushing it uphill, telling us that the Tourette's thing, nothing to see here.
Okay.
Okay, Prime Minister, cost of living, housing, all the rest of it. On a day when Food Bank comes out and says 3 and a bit million people, food insecurity, decides that's the day, $4.3 million, not for the house he's planning to move into because he's about to finish up, but it's a place he's going to rent out because Jodie's a coastie.
Yeah, look, I got nothing.
Good.
Holly? It is a terrible...
Holly?
It's a terrible
God.
look. Look, he's allowed to buy whatever house he wants.
Of course he
We all
do.
know that. I had assumed that this was something he was going to do after
the end.
he finished. I mean, he's already got 2 pretty nice houses.
Correct.
That he was going to do after, and it's just a terrible look. I can understand. I think he's in a bit of a love bubble or whatever, but it's an awful look. I don't know anyone who thinks it's anything but just an awful look. I've got, my wife is just like, what is he? I'm like, I don't know. It's not my fault.
Look,
and Labor people I've spoken to are just going, what the actual...
And look, and I'm sure that he throws the toys out of the cot and gets the Harry hits if you say things like that. But the reality is, when you are somebody who is looking for all the ways to look for the positive, and we all know I've been there with certain prime ministers, there has to be moments where you turn around and go, no, sorry. And better man you than I for being able to say that about something like this. Holly, again, for all the stated reasons, right? Now, again, is he allowed to do this? Sure, right? But he's not about to leave. He's got 2 taxpayer-funded homes, so it's just because he can. So does he have a death wish, or is he so full of himself that nothing touches him? I am nothing but sort of, slippery surfaces built on top of slippery surfaces. Teflon, there we go.
Look, I just, when I read it this morning, just could not believe it. I mean, it is just completely and utterly tone deaf. I mean, he's entitled to buy a house if he can afford it. Great. That's his prerogative. But when you are the Prime Minister of the country who promised us cheaper mortgages, cheaper cost of living, cheaper everything else that was going to be great, $275 off your power bills, none of which has eventuated. In fact, it has gone so far in the other direction, as you've been sharing the food bank research. The food insecurity. I mean, this government has managed to generate a working poor, something we've fundamentally never really had before. This government, in a very short period of time, has managed to create a new class of Australians. And the fact that he's out there, I mean, I can't afford a $4.3 million home. In fact, I don't even think I could afford the rent on the $4.3 million home. But I mean, he's bought in an area at the Central Coast, and I look after a lot of that region as part of my duty seats. There are people living in caravans up there because they cannot find rental properties.
Correct.
Now, I'm pretty sure this isn't going to go on as an affordable rental. Pretty sure someone who's on a teacher and a policeman's wages aren't going to be able to afford the rent that's being asked on this, let alone if it's going to be an Airbnb short stay rental, because that'd be a kicker. But then we'll find out as well whether or not it's negatively geared and whether it's being used as a tax deduction, because I'm assuming there'll be a mortgage on it, and whether or not it's geared so that the rental payments will cover that. I mean, it is so tone deaf. It is an insult, I think, to every Australian. And the fact that, he acknowledges that he's on a good wicket now, but still tries to tie it back to his mother who lived in social housing her whole life.
No one buys this
stuff.
This is
extraordinary. Extraordinary.
It's going to be... Look,
Actually,
and again...
You know what? I've got it now. He's just showing how much he's on board with aspirational Australians. And he's putting his money where his mouth
that's what it is.
On negative gearing to show that
Stop it.
I've actually been thinking about you all day, Joe, wondering how we were going to deal with this tonight, because I thought, God, I cannot wait to hear how he defends this.
It is.
All right, okay, so I want quick hits on both of you because I went too long at the start, but I want to make the most of this here. When I was in Queensland, if you have a look, whose name's on the Tinder? Now, give me an idea here, Joe, where... can you buy an election? Like, I was in Queensland on the sheer base of advertising alone. Labor's right in it, right? Like right in there, okay? We know that they're sort of going out the back door, but for people who half pay attention, only see the billboard, all of these things, right? I don't know. Simple question. Can you buy an election? Because they're really trying.
You can, and the Teals have done it, but there's nothing there's no amount of money that Labor can throw at this election, and indeed it's making the sort of promises that it makes, and you see this with governments in their death throes after they've won one term too many, where they make promises that they know they cannot keep, and they make them on that basis. They propose things that are sort of so expensive, so out there, so crazy that they know they'll never be held accountable for them. It's just a furniture-saving exercise, pure and simple.
And Kamala Harris going on Fox News. Ultimate sign of strength or a little bit of a sign of panic, Holly?
I think it's absolute desperation, and it's actually extraordinary. I think you're right. I think they are going to ask a hard question. She hasn't been able to coherently answer anything when it's been softball questions to her, to the point that they've had to edit her answers together to try and make them into a sentence. I actually think this will be better to watch than the debate. I think this could be an absolute cracker, and bring it on.
I love you, Holly. Thank you very much.
I
Love you, Joe. Love you all. Love you all. See you next week.
Love you all.
Ta-da. See, we all end up lovely. That's the way it should be. Cuddles for everyone.